set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out.
Hello, Miami. Thank you so much for watching 305 Sports Now. And we are on 305 Live. And the guest needs no introduction. Sorry, I was like a couple seconds late, but I planned everything except one thing. I forgot to send this gentleman the link to come on. And you know him, no introduction. He goes by Chalupa Batman of the Uheard podcast, and now he's president of the Dillon Fan Club. That is absolutely awesome. And how you doing, Brody?
Yeah, I am the unofficial president of the number 23 Dillon Day Fan Club. There's not a bunch of us in the fan club yet, but you know, I'm trying to get it started. You know, that's my guy, so I'm hoping for big things for him this year. But I'm feeling good. How we feeling, Will? It's springtime, man. We got recruiting, March Madness. I know it's a busy time for you because playoffs are about to start. Your Heat are they're doing okay. I don't want to kick you, but yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the rare times that my Knicks are doing a lot better than other people's teams. So
yeah, the Heat are awful, man. They've really listen, man. A lot of the fan base, they're now calling for expulsion's head, and I'm like, listen, man, everybody's entitled to one bad season. Yeah, it's a small minority that's really loud, and everybody's entitled to one bad season, man. Pop won multiple championships, and even he's had a couple stinkers because of the talent that he's had on his team. So I do think that Pat Riley does have some tricks up his sleeve. I do think we will get eventually a star player. He's done it in the past. Damian Lillard should be on his team, but the gentleman over in Portland had too much pride and wouldn't let his guy go to the team he actually wanted to go to originally. If not, I do think Dame and Jimmy would still be on the squad and not, you know, what we're doing right now, which is basically seeing what we can get in the play-in and then seeing what we can do for next season or the following year. So I think the Miami Heat are in that type of mode right now. But Tyler Herro said it best. You know, he said that in the fourth quarter, we always relied a lot on Jimmy. So it's just a matter of acclimating and them being him and Bam being the guys to step up. And I think that's a good attitude to have personally.
It feels like that organization is a bit tumultuous at the top. I know that's Pat Riley's style is, you know, my way or the highway kind of situation.
Yeah, I wouldn't say tumultuous. I say orderly. And if you hear me what I mean, it's like it's a team that has a structure and a culture. You know, I put the Steelers in the same category. I put the Panthers now, the Florida Panthers, in the same category. Hell, I even put the Spurs in the same category under Pop. It's basically they have a system, they have a philosophy. You either buy in or you're gone, and that's pretty much the way it is. And it's worked. I mean, they've had multiple appearances in Eastern Conference championship games. They've won 3 championships. You know, they've gone to the finals quite a few times. It works, and you know, and you just have to find the right fit. Wade fit that mold, and Wade found out how much he fit that mold when he left for Chicago. Okay, Zoe fit that mold as well. LeBron admitted that it was like going to college for him. You know, when he was in Miami, he learned how to win here, and then took that elsewhere to Cleveland, and then later on to the Lakers. He admitted himself. It's like when he didn't go to Duke, Miami was his Duke. He admitted it. So I do think that those are just things that happen. But again, you're entitled to one bad season. I don't care what anyone says. Yes, we were in the play-in last year. We still made the playoffs. The year before the play-in, but we made it to the finals. And then the year before that, first place, you were one shot away from going back to the finals. So you just need a star, and that's it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining. Again, compared to, we're spoiled because the Heat have been pretty consistent for about 20 years. And I do think there are some teams that wish they were in Miami's shoes, where there's still, in my opinion, a light at the end of the tunnel. That's just the way I see things. But I wouldn't call it tumultuous. I would call it orderly. You know, that's the way I see it. You know,
so and you can't win in today's NBA without superstars. And I mean, you still got Bam. You still got, there's some great pieces there, right? You still got Tyler can shoot. He can shoot the lights out.
Yeah. They're stars, but I want to put them in a superstar category. They're stars. Yeah. They're stars. Like, there's no doubt they're stars, but they're not superstars. Okay, they're not superstars. Like Dame's a superstar, Giannis superstar, Luka's a superstar. You know, even at his age, Steph Curry I would still call a superstar
Oh
in
yeah.
general. And Jimmy's there at the cusp, but he's not. He's almost a superstar, but he's very close. You know, he was in Miami to being a superstar. He was better in the playoffs, I would say, that than sometimes even in the regular season. But Miami just doesn't have a superstar yet. They have stars, all right. They have stars and they have potential. You know, with Khalil Ware, I really like that pickup. And Miami's scout team is one of the best in the NBA. They did a good job scouting that young man. But they needed Lillard. I think that's a guy that when a team's creeping up in the fourth quarter, like what's been happening in Miami this year, that's the guy that puts the brakes, you know, on the opposing teams having any chances of winning. So if the Heat don't blow, if the Heat don't blow all those leads this season, they're probably in third place, Chalupa, in the
painful
conference. Yeah, it's like 15. They've blown like 16 fourth quarters this season. 16 leads.
That tells you that there could be a crazy turnaround next year, though, because sometimes you see that with on the football side, you'll see that team that, you know, like they're 500, but you know, 4 of those losses were 3 or less, you know. So the next year, team ends up 12-4, and it's like, well, they didn't do much different from last year. It's the extra defensive tackle they got. You know what I mean? That gets them one more stop, or the safety that the old school Cowboys that couldn't get over the hump, so they went and got Dion so he could shut down one side of the field. Sometimes when you're that close, you can tweak something small or add that a Dame Lillard, add that one guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That could change those games.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And the Knicks are better this year because they've adjusted to some pieces, you know, as well. Like, and a lot of Heat fans, they say, oh, well, we could have gotten Kyrie. I'm like, well, Kyrie doesn't fit Miami. I mean, Kyrie, you know, great player, but he could be a space cadet sometimes, you know, let's be honest. And that doesn't really fit, you know, what the Heat like to do. And I think Lillard would have been the perfect guy, to be honest with you. Team guy. You know, he did all he could for Portland. You can't say that he didn't. He's a team guy. He's clutch. He loves the ball in his hands, but he also loves to distribute. He would have been the perfect fit for this team. And again, I do think that he would have been in better shape. And we probably still have Jimmy Butler because he wouldn't have to take up all that scoring in the playoffs because he would have a go-to guy, which is really what he wanted to do anyway for his ball club. So that's what I think is it.
Pat Riley would have paid. I don't think he was going to pay Jimmy regardless.
Yeah,
Seems
because
like he's very stubborn.
Well, the thing is, Corey, is that he missed a lot of games last year, and he probably didn't say it, but one of the things he said in the offseason is that you have to play games. You know, he's on the wrong side of 30. You know, to use a phrase by Joe Rose, he's on the wrong side of 30 as well, and that's basically the thing. And last year we made it into the play-in because he missed a lot of games. You probably don't have that situation if he plays more often. And that's the case. The same thing this year. He's missing a lot of games as well. Now, lo and behold, he's missed like one game the most again with Golden State. Now, all of a sudden, he's super healthy.
You know, funny how that works. Didn't Riley or someone had to tell him during the year because he made a comment or something after a game, and then someone have to say like, "Hey, if you're not playing, please be quiet." Like, didn't someone have to tell him to kind of stop if he's not?
I don't remember. It might have been early in the season. You know, yeah, it might have been early in the season.
It's a bit of a trend with him now. Once, you know, with the Timberwolves, it's okay. Maybe Minnesota was being a little weird to him, but it happens at another location. At some point, you have to look inward, right? I mean,
yeah, well, it happens at every team. It happened in Chicago.
Yeah,
it happened in Minnesota. It happened in Philly, and now it happened here. And everyone thought this was the fit for him because one of his biggest complaints. I don't want to make this Jimmy Butler show, but you know, one of the biggest complaints that Jimmy had before coming to Miami is that he wasn't coached up enough. He wanted somebody to tell him that he sucked, you know, that he needed to step up his game.
Well, he went to the right organization for that.
He did. Absolutely. This is a guy that called, this is Coach Riley called Shaq fat pretty much in a nice way. You know, It's like he called him fat, you know, and it's just when you're listen, at least, you know, when you're Miami, you know what you're getting. There's no, I'm surprised. There's no, I didn't sign up for this. You know exactly what you're getting. You know you have to be healthy physically. You're going to practice really hard, and you're expected to give it your all every single game, and especially in the playoffs. I mean, and the scout guys did it. One of the biggest reasons why the Heat made it to the finals against the Denver Nuggets. Look at the guys they scouted. Caleb Martin. Look at Gabe Vincent as well. Max Strus. All those guys were like no one wanted. Okay, they were like, you know, bench players that couldn't see the court. They came to Miami with an edge, and they got some time. They got coached up and they played, above their pay grade, to say the least, and they got paid for it too, as well. And that's the Heat way. The thing is right now too, Corey, is that the team hasn't changed as far as schematics go. It's just a matter of execution. Okay, the Heat are open a lot of times and they're just missing shots. And I mean that's the thing too. You got to hit your shots. It's a make or miss league, and that's where the Heat are going with right now. When 2 years ago they seemed to make everything. And they were a buzzsaw, and then they played the good defense as well. But that's just not the case, this season. But like I said, everybody's entitled to a bad season.
Yep.
Again,
like
I do think
you get that one piece.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
What I mean? That one piece can maybe take 2 or 3 shots from other people who aren't in flow all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just having somebody else to knock down a shot when everyone else isn't knocking down a shot.
Yeah.
Now, I think that's where Dame would have been perfect. Where I think Dame's at the part of his career. We see it with Giannis. He don't have to get 30 every night. Mm-hmm. But if Giannis is off,
he takes over.
You know what I mean? You can go, okay, well, he ain't hitting the night. Can you bail us out a little bit? Yeah. Or, you know what I mean? Or we saw, we'll get off basketball, but we saw the Nuggets last night without Yoke, right? Without Joker. Everyone else kind of had to step up a little bit. Aaron Gordon stepped up a little bit, started knocking down some shots. So, yeah, Heat fans out there, I feel like y'all are going to be fine. I like the young pieces. I think Bam is a freak, just an absolute freak. So I think they'll be fine. And I've always liked Tyler Hero's game. I know he's not a superstar, but guys who can shoot, and I'm still a big fan of the mid-range game. So I'm a big Booker fan because I like a mid-range guy, and Tyler's got one of the best mid-range strokes. So I think y'all will be okay.
I think so too. And again, it's some guys they're great 1 year and they just tear up the NBA, like a Devin Booker who you just mentioned. And some guys take time, and I think Tyler's that guy. Tyler's actually upped this game this year. He's actually gotten bigger too, which has kept him off the injury list as well. So that kind of helps out as well too. I think Miami's gonna be fine if they just get one more piece to play off of Bam and play off of Tyler, a guy that's a good team guy that could score. Again, there's rumors some people are online clamoring for the Heat to go all in on KD, in the offseason. I get it. He's not the same guy he was, but he's still an efficient scorer enough to get us over the hump, I think. And hopefully we'll see what happens with Luka and Giannis, in the I don't know if it's this offseason or the following that the Heat might be preparing for. Listen, the one thing about the Heat, or at least Pat Riley, he's not cheap, but the one flaw I would say about our owner, and again, it's not my money, so I don't seem like I'm bashing the guy, but Mickey Arison will not pay a penny over the luxury tax. That's the rate. Hilarious. Yeah, he will not pay a penny over the luxury tax. He will tell you, pay any max deal you want, but it's not going to the luxury tax. And that's the one thing about Mickey. Hilarious. Now, again, it's not my money, and every dollar you go over, I don't know if the deal is, it used to be $3. For every dollar you went over is like $3 you were taxed. So that could be pretty hefty for a team. But the bottom line is, though, that's the one thing about Mickey. He will not go over the luxury tax. He'll sign anybody within the salary cap, and that's the way he's always been. And Pat has had to work with that, and I think he's done a damn good job, since he became the head coach and president of the Miami Heat. So
there's different philosophies, and I think they've shown like you said, one bad season. So they've shown their philosophy works. It just doesn't work when you thought your guy's not here anymore. You know what I mean? This roster was also built with him in mind. So
exactly.
That makes sense. It's like you take Brunson off the Knicks. You know what I mean? If we built this thing around him, not to say the guys around him can't play, but it's also built around him. Yeah. So if we remove him, it's gonna get spooky. So, but I like the pieces there, and I'm starting to watch a little bit more basketball this year. So I had to bring that up because I know you're a big hoop fan. I've been getting more.
Yeah, I am. You're gonna laugh because this upcoming my live show Thursday is the NBA versus NHL. Who's tougher as far as players go? It's gonna be fun. I have a basketball guy coming on from the FTSN network, so we're gonna bounce off each other. Basketball
can win that unless y'all go like back to the 70s. You got to go to the 70s to get like.
Actually, I would say the 80s too, man. Bill Laimbeer used to punch Charles Barkley, and vice versa.
That's true.
To wrestle on the ground.
80s. Yeah, there were some real tough guys.
Yeah, there were.
Nowadays, I don't know but the game's just different. You know what I mean? The game's just different. It's just like football. Man. We don't have enforcers anymore,
No, we
Gone
don't.
are the days where you have that safety where he can't really cover. He's not that great, but he's an enforcer. You
Yeah.
don't really have that anymore. You don't really have that in hoop anymore because even the 10th dude on your bench needs to be able to get a bucket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can't have you just be 6 fouls. You know, and that the days of carrying that guy are over. So that's gonna be an interesting one. Yeah, I gotta watch that. That's gonna be
My
fun.
dog is crying to get out the room. Oh man. No,
Oh,
yeah,
trust
no.
me.
No,
If y'all see
it's
me
gonna be a
keep
fun
looking
show.
this way, it's because my dogs are right there. They're literally right there.
Yeah, man. No, but yeah, like the last enforcer the Heat had was Udonis, and you can make an argument for Birdman, as well. So that's the last time the Heat had an enforcer. And that's about it. But man, I'm glad. I love, again, dude. You and I, we just spent 16 minutes talking about basketball. We're supposed to talk about recruiting.
Yeah, I was like, man, I had to bring up the Heat because I've been watching a lot of hoop lately, and I obviously they're not having a good season, but I still like some of the pieces. So I was like, I wonder how Will's feeling about the future.
Yeah, I've had issues watching the games because I don't have the FanDuel network, and they don't seem to be, depending on your package, they're not playing very nice with Xfinity. So whenever they're on TNT, yeah, it does. I have Max, so whenever they're on Max, I'll get a peek. The Panthers games as well. They're on local TV. The problem with the Panthers games is you don't have an antenna. It's hard to watch, and I have a 5-year-old, so he dominates the TV until he goes to sleep sometimes. So that's the thing. But I do keep up. I do listen to the guys. I do watch highlights. I know what's going on, in the NBA world with my teams as well. So yeah, man. I think let me tell you, man. This is funny though. Before we continue on, going back into my hockey argument a little bit. The NBA All-Star game is fun. They have fun with each other. In the NHL, what was it? I think it was called the World League. I forgot what it was called. The Nations, whatever it was. It was an exhibition, man, and they were punching each other in the face. The first 2 minutes.
They don't. It's a very physical game.
Oh,
and
totally.
There's some finesse involved and some smoothness involved too. And you got your players that are a bit more smooth, that are a bit more.
Yeah, like Connor McDavid from Edmonton. He's, he was a nightmare for the Panthers last year to cover.
But you also got Bash Brothers out there too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what's cool about the game too is I don't think they've lost their grit. You know what I mean? Whereas the NFL's lost its grit, the NBA's kind of lost its grit. As much as scoring has to be a big deal in whatever sport, whatever major sport there is, it feels like hockey still hasn't lost its grit. You know what I'm saying? It still hasn't lost that. A tough guy is still a good roster spot. Like I like that. I like that. That's cool. Like, what does he do? When somebody says some shit, we send him out. Like, oh, cool. That's awesome. So he's not very good. Like, no, not really. But
no, he's just,
somebody says something crazy.
He's gonna slam you up against the boards.
Yeah,
that's about it.
A couple guys, we'll sub them out. I think that's cool. I think you need role players, and I like that. Sometimes, I mean, I'm not a big dude, so I wasn't a big physical football player, but I enjoyed the guys that were physical, just as long as they weren't physical.
Of course.
Me, I enjoyed that they were physical. Yeah, me, like I still enjoy that. Like sometimes some of the best film I like to watch is linebackers or defensive linemen, just because sometimes it's just fun to watch somebody just destroy somebody in front of them.
No, absolutely. All right, so guys, ladies and gentlemen, we just went to 0. In terms of views, we'll start the college football talk. All right, we'll start the college football talk. Yeah, we're back. All right, so first thing we're gonna do, everybody, is we're gonna just go over a little bit about the recruiting. He is the king of the watch along. All right, when it comes to recruiting and knowing the recruits, no one is better than Chalupa Batman. Okay, Corey Carmona. All right. I used your government name again.
President of the Dylan Day
Dylan Day fan club. Hey, like I said, you're ahead of the curve, man. You're absolutely ahead of the curve. So I was going to start with questions from the crowd, but I think John brings up a good point about Cantwell. You heard anything about his visit? And I know he's going to be a great get because he's the top O-lineman in the country, but he's slated to go to Missouri, they say. You heard anything about the visit, Chalupa?
It looked like his visit went pretty well. I was seeing some of his posts from earlier, and then one of our guys, shout out to Ben Cogden, the 4-star commit. He's been on Jackson tough. That kid seems like the second he got recruited, he said it on the timeline for everyone to see. Like, I am going into recruiting mode. So it seems like he's been on Jackson pretty heavy. I feel like we're always in a good standing with a lot of these top offensive linemen because they love Mirabal and they want to learn from Mirabal, and they want to kill one man consume without an explosion. Juan, well enough to know that I personally could consume a bunch of sugar without
Oh, we
exploding.
know.
I'll tell you the day I explode, that we'll just mark it as that day. Like that's the threshold. It's like the lollipop with the owl. The day it happens, we'll just bookmark it as okay, this is how much sugar a person can take. Well, not a person, but me. Somebody else could probably take a lot less than that. I'm weird. I know he's had this is actually not his first visit in the spring either.
Mhm,
So I was always taught, even when I first started doing this, Brian Smith always says track the visits, right?
mhm.
Track the visits, and that'll tell you more than Rivals or 24/7 is trying to tell you. Seems like they're trying to make sure he's on campus quite a bit, which is always a great sign. And if you look at our offensive line room, it is a bit older now. So there is that, hey, you can come in and actually play. Maybe not right away, or maybe right away. Markel Bell's probably gone after this year. I'm pretty sure he is because I think he came too late to get that extra JUCO year. So you look at the CC come back again. So there's some spots to be had. So I think it would be huge to get a elite offensive lineman like Jackson Cantwell. Like I said, it's always a great sign when someone wants to be on campus, when someone wants to come back in the spring and come back again. And I never count out Mirabal when it comes to an offensive lineman, dude. I just don't. I don't even when we miss out on one that I want, I'm always like, okay, but Mirabal's probably got something up his sleeve. Like there's probably a reason for that. And another thing when it comes to offensive linemen with Miami, I don't always feel like we need the 5-star. I I I almost not almost. I trust Alex Mirabal. So if Alex Mirabal brings in 4 3-stars, my mind is going, okay, one of those kids is probably like the truth. And no one else sees it yet, but Mirabal does. The same way with Inez Cooper. You know what I mean?
Say that.
The same way with a Markel Bell. He sees something that everybody else is not seeing right now. So sometimes it's best to trust the evals. But then when it's a can't miss guy like Cantwell, it's good that we're getting him on campus. And I like letting the young guys see spring practice because it's not just them getting to see how we coach. I want them to watch CC. I want them to watch how they coach CC. I want them to watch how they coach Markel Bell. I want them to watch the progression from Plaz last year, the progression from Manaya last year, because that'll let them know, hey, I can really, really get developed here. So I think it's a great thing that we're having him come in on the spring and in the Miami Springs and I'm sorry if y'all hear the sneezing in the background. I'm sorry, my wife is incredibly sick. Um, I think the spring is great for them to come see because we hear every year that those scrimmages are 10 times harder than the spring game. So I want Jackson to get to experience that, to get to see that. And then you know how it is at a Miami spring practice or even a walkthrough. You've got legends out the wazoo there. So now he's getting to talk to Ray Lewis about what it was like to be here, talk to these other vets. So I think it's huge getting a guy like that on campus during the spring. And I think we're in a good place for him. Like you said, it looks like SEC country's barking pretty hard. Missouri has been spending some money in the past couple
Mhm.
years in recruiting. So there's always that you have to contend with. But I think we're always in a good standing when it comes to an offensive lineman because the other 123 don't have Mirabal. That's just really what it boils down to. Because it's like that scene from the Avengers where it's like, yeah, but we have a Hulk. It's like, yeah, but we have
Yeah.
Mirabal. So I mean, we're gonna have a hat on that table because we have Mirabal. So I feel like we're in good standing with him.
Yeah, aside from Cantwell, I've heard of a couple other offensive linemen, one of them being from IMG. Can you let us know a little bit about those guys and what potential they could bring to the team if they do commit?
It's 2 of them.
Two of them. Okay.
There's 2 of them that I absolutely love. Now I'm gonna butcher this kid, but actually I'm gonna butcher both of their names because I type it more than I say it. I believe it's Genevieve Carr, 4-star offensive lineman, massive kid. I need to get his measurables. Massive kid. I think it's Genevieve Carr. I think that's how you say it. I'd never say it out loud. I only type it. But he's 6'4", 336, 4-star offensive lineman, 2026 class, obviously. Well, this kid is a people mover. He looks like 3 people combined into one. He is huge. And when you see him standing, he's got long arms too. and moves, dude. Like moves like a guard, plays tackle. He's fantastic. And those guys from IMG can play all five. So we know
Yep.
Mirabal is going to love a guy that can come in and play all five. Him and Pepe. I cannot say this kid's name because I've never heard it said out loud. I think it's Kini Pepe. Pepe is his name. He's like 6'7", probably 6'7", 6'8". I think he's listed as 6'7", but when you see him stand next to like other guys that I know are 6'6", I'm like, he's 6'7" and a half easily. Extremely long arms, physical, smooth, agile, quick. He's one of those big offensive linemen that you're like, okay, he either used to be a tight end or he probably used to play something else or maybe play some basketball because the way he moves, his lateral quickness, okay, he hasn't always been an offensive lineman. If he is, he's just insanely gifted. One of those dudes that I call him like 4 clicks. It's like when you're watching their highlights, because you fast forward with the arrow, it's a click. You fast forward about 4 times. You watch 4 plays, and you go, okay, I've seen all I need to see here. I don't need to watch this full huddle. I've seen everything I need to see. Carr and Pepe to me are elite, and I believe Pepe just got his 5th star from 24/7. His composite 5th star. He's elite. I would love to land at least one of them. I think there's a 3rd one from IMG that we're in on. I heard someone mention it the other day. I'm not sure who it is, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you. But I was on a space and someone was like, yeah, there's a 3rd kid from IMG, which blew my mind because I was thinking there can't be more elite offensive linemen on this football team. And they've got one that I liked last year. We ended up not landing. Caden Strayhorn went to Michigan. I know his little brother is there, but I believe he's a 2028 kid and he's an interior offensive lineman. But those two from IMG, Pepe and Carr, are just absolutely elite.
Okay. Thank you for that info. Really appreciate it. I just forgot their names because they're names that you don't really hear too much. Some other guys that you interview a lot of kids. Who are we not talking about? Okay, before we get into Jalen Waters and Cannon Pickett, who are we not talking about that Miami fans or fans in general who love college football should pay attention to, that you've spoken to and that are flying under the radar?
That's actually a great question. So there's a running back that none of us really, well, I say none of us, but when I say us, I don't mean me and Will. I mean the general population and the fan base. I feel like never talk about. Another name that I've never said out loud. I just realized that just now. He just released his top 3 and he put us in it. 4-star running back. I think his name is Favor Aki, Akih. First name Favour. 4-star running back. Dude, he is lightning. He is fantastic. I think the reason the fan base doesn't talk about him as much is I don't think we got on his recruitment till a little bit later. His top 3 actually dropped today, and he is absolutely fantastic. For some other kids that I don't feel like we talk about enough, now I'll probably jump around classes a little bit, but there's a 4-star defensive back that we offered from North Shore in my neck of the woods, plays for SFE. His name is Chase Calicut. Kid's like 6'3", 6'4", long arms, long physical, can play safety, can play in the box, play some corner and 7-on-7, showing you that versatility. He's legit. I think we're just a little bit late on him because he's from Texas. He's from Houston, Texas. He goes to North Shore. I think it took us a little bit to come down here. We actually just offered him a few months ago, actually right after his top schools dropped. So I like DM'd him. I was like, can you change that, please? But he's phenomenal. I know that that's someone that they're pretty high on and they like. Obviously came all the way down to, and they came to see him in person to give him that offer. Really big on him. At receiver, I feel like we only talk about 3 guys, especially because of the South Florida connection with Calvin Russell. And, we talk about Jason Lopez a lot, which fan of this show or friend of this show, fantastic young man. I know anyone that in the chat is shaking their head when me and Will mention that. Great kid. But there is a monster receiver there's 2 of them that people don't talk about enough. One of them is Jaden Petit. This kid is insane. And he's huge, big, physical. Reminds me of like Josh Moore, but with a little bit more muscle on him. Just
Is
a
he Tyler
big,
Williams-ish, like last year's recruit, the Georgia kid?
yes,
Okay.
very much, very much. Just a little bit more physical though. Like
Okay.
he is the definition of physical, the kind of guy after the catch that can go around you, but would have a little bit more fun going through you. He's that kind of receiver. Jump ball guy, big hands, long arms, but he can also take a screen, make a guy miss, and go 60 yards and hit his head on the goalpost. He's I know some people. The more I talk about him, the more people are like, yeah, but the competition he plays, obviously, you have to weigh that sometimes. But when you dominate that competition, I don't want to hear that it's not that. That's my second one. That's my second one. My second one is Samarian Wingo. I found Samarian Wingo by an accident. I have a close relationship with one of his teammates, Carl Jenkins Jr., who I interviewed last year. They played Heritage in the playoffs last year, and we were watching anyway because Heritage, and I know a lot of those kids, so I was watching to watch Heritage, and because Carl's on the other team, so I was like, well, support both of my guys, all of my guys here, and watch the game. And it's hard to see their numbers sometimes on that high school app because it's a hard cam. So in the first quarter, I'm thinking, I was like, man, Carl is cooking. And then they lined up Carl on to like closer to the camera. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Carl's wearing a sleeve. That's not him. Who is this other kid? And it left my mind. I didn't think about it again after that until it was when the 26s really started heating up. Somebody gave me the name Samarian Wingo, and I've never heard of that kid before. So I looked him up. And when he went to the same school Carl went to, I said, I know who that is. That's the kid that flashed when I was trying to look for Carl. That kid, Samarian Wingo, is every bit of an elite receiver. He runs every route you can ask for. He's not one of those guys that just runs a bunch of 9 routes, a bunch of post routes, and is just faster than everybody else. We see that in high school where you're just faster. So go and quarterback and lay it out there for you. He does the dirty work in between the hashes. I'm talking about beating zone, the 3rd and 4s to extend drives. Blocking, he is a elite blocker and puts it on his huddle, not at the end so that everyone can see. He puts it on his huddle as something he takes pride in. He's one of those complete receivers, one of those guys. He's a 4-star, but he doesn't get talked about enough. He's one of those kids that circa his sophomore or junior year, we're all going to look and go, well, why weren't people talking about this guy? Like, where did he come from? And I think it's because receiver is just, it's plentiful in Florida. I mean, you look at guys like Jabari Brady. We mentioned Calvin Russell, Jason Lopez, Denarius Gray over at Chaminade, Julius Jones Jr. at STA. American Heritage has like 5 of them with Jamar Dillon Denson, Jafar G. Noel Coy. Shout out to Coy. Brandon Bennett, who we're really high on, the Olympic speedster, the 4-star kid. And then they got Amari Wallace from STA, who's obviously committed to us. Ton of receivers in Florida. So I feel like some of the Florida guys go unnoticed. Jaden Petit and Samarian Wingo at receiver, they don't get enough recognition and enough buzz. Even when people start talking about what receivers we want in this class, you hear the same names typically. You hear those guys at the top of the board. But from everything I've been told and that I've kind of tried to poke at, Kevin Beer loves Jaden Petit. That's his guy. And they love Samarian Wingo. And when you watch the film, you can see why. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. He's a returner as well. He's just a full football player, not just a receiver. He's a football player. Really love him. I don't believe so. I don't think so. I don't think he's related to Ryan Wingo because Ryan Wingo wasn't from down here. So I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, that's good. Well, we'll see about that. And Ryan Wingo's dad follows me, so we used to talk about Ryan quite a bit. So I don't think he's related to Wingo. I'll ask Mr. Wingo. If I can give one honorable mention at receiver, 2, I'll give 2. Ryan Mosley from Carrollton. Shout out to Ryan Mosley out there at Carrollton. Used to play with Juju Lewis, obviously, out there. Kid is dynamite, man. Just absolutely dynamite. Plays on C1N Cam Newton 7-on-7 team. He's another guy that can take the top off the defense, but can get you a 3rd and 4 in between in between the hashes. One of those, and he's big. If you watch him play, you would think, oh, he plays like a 6-foot guy. He's got wiggle. He's got crazy agility, but he's like 6'4". He's long. He just has the skill set of a slot guy. He's phenomenal. I would love for us to land him. We are in on him, but I'd worry about some of those center of the of the country schools out there in SEC and Big Ten country, because that's where he's from. He's from Georgia. And then Caden Dixon Wyatt from Mater Day. His name never gets mentioned. I think it's because he's all the way on the West Coast. But he's got the offer from us, plays for SFE, plays for a top flight high school program in Mater Day. And I think he'll blow up in Florida next year because they play STA the first game of the year next year in Florida. So I think when more people that cover this in Florida see him in person, I think he'll blow up more. But Caden Dixon Wyatt, man, that kid is special. You don't play on an SFE team with all those receivers and you're still a standout and you're not something special. When you're in a room with special talent and you stand out, that's when the light bulb goes off for me.
What I like about Miami's program is that they're very good at identifying kids early. Whether they commit or not is a different story. Yes. But Miami's very good at identifying kids early, and that's something, which helps because they like to build relationships as well. Whether it's Kevin Beard, Mirabal, we all know with Luke, no one really looked at Luke until much later on in his high school career, but Miami spotted him rather quickly. So I'm very I know that that does in many cases play to the heartstrings of the kids, because the fact that before everybody started looking at them, Miami was already giving them an eye, giving them offers, or talking to them as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely.
I had a 28 kid on recently, and he is blowing up. I'm talking about Bama, Georgia, LSU blowing up. We first had him come to a camp in the 7th grade. He was a 7th grader. So they put him up against like a 9th grader, and he cooked him. So they asked him to come up to the front of the line again, put him up against like a 10th grader, and he cooked him. And they put him against like a couple 4-star kids, couple kids that were going to be seniors, and he cooked him. And he was like, well, I thought I was going to get my offer then. I think they waited because he was in the 7th grade. So they were like, how about we wait one more year? And he was a little bit down on himself. But the one thing he said is they never stopped talking to him. They never stopped being in contact. They never stopped asking him to come to a camp, come to a visit, come to a game. And he's at IMG now. And he got the offer from us before the Bamas, before the LSUs. Georgia just had him on campus last week. But to Will's point, we believed in that kid before everyone else did. Yeah. So one of the very first things he says, even before we start recording, is, we got to talk about my Miami offer, man. When I was in 7th grade, Coach Cristobal was telling me, you're going to be really good at this. You're going to be good. You the truth. You're going to be great. And that means a lot to a 7th grader. That means a lot to an 8th grader, to a 9th grader, to see a guy like Cristobal, to see a guy like Kevin Beard, to see a guy like Matt Merritt be in on you and believe in you. Before, when you got USF and FAU, you're happy. And then Miami says offer. That makes a kid go, oh, this is the first big program that saw this in me. And then kids are smarter than previous generations of kids being recruited, just because social media, they can see everything.
Yeah.
So they know now you're only offering me because Cristobal did.
Yeah,
because I went to your camp and I went to X, Y, and Z. And it wasn't until I got the Miami offer that Georgia calls, that Auburn calls, that LSU calls. Gone are the days where they overlook that. They see that now and they go, oh, we saw it from Darion Coleman. What did Darion Coleman say the other day? I do not know why these coaches keep calling me.
Yeah, I want to ask you that question, because he's completely shut down his recruitment, and he's getting some accolades nationally. Is that because Miami, offered him really much earlier and took the time to scout him and talk to him and stay in contact with him, that he's basically told the other schools, you know what, basically go to hell, pretty much for the most part?
It was actually the reverse. Miami was not on Darion early. They knew of him. They knew of him. He had competed at a couple of their camps and cooked too. Like, we've all seen him throw. So we know that you put him in t-shirts and shorts, no one can touch him. And he's great in pads too. Please no one take that the wrong way. But if you put this kid in a camp his arm talent is the best I've seen since I've been doing this. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone that can sling it the way he does. So he's obviously was showing out. I think they wanted him to put on a little bit more weight when he was younger, and he kind of shared the duties with a young man that's actually at Florida State right now, Trevor Jackson. When he was just a sophomore, he actually took the starting job from a senior at Jones, and it looked like an OU lock for so long. And the reason I never really talked about Darion much is because I thought he was an OU lock. For a while, he didn't have the offer from us. I spoke with his dad several times, and I knew he was a Miami fan because I spoke with his dad a few times. And Darion grew up a Cane. He grew up a huge Cane fan, so he always wanted that Miami offer. It looked like OU was going to absolutely lock him up. Anytime someone would ask me, "How about the kid from Jones?" I always said the same thing. I think it's OU. It looks like an OU lock. And then funny thing happens is you get that dream school offer. And not only did he get the offer, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, they haven't really recruited many quarterbacks in the 2026 class. Once they identified, okay, Darion, here's a committable offer, and he took it right away. He wasted no time. There wasn't any, okay, let me take a visit. He got that offer from Shannon Dawson, committed, and shut his recruiting down. And I think that is 100%. Well, I don't think he said it on shows before. He grew up a Cane. He grew up a Miami fan. He wanted to come to this university and make this university great. That's been his goal since he started throwing a football. So you can imagine when that actually does happen, and then they tell you, you're the guy. There's not a second quarterback in this class. We're not flirting with nobody else. It's you. That's all he needed to hear. Sometimes you just want, especially as a quarterback, you want somebody to believe in you. Not the believing in you where it's like, we're bringing in 2 4-stars. We just kind of hope, we're going to let you guys battle it out. And then whoever makes it, makes it. It's different when they say, no, it's just you. You're the guy. If we need to get a transfer guy in to fill the roster spot, we'll do that. But you are our guy in 26. I think from the second he heard that, he locked in and he didn't need to hear anything else because he grew up a Cane. So it's that story we love hearing in recruiting, right? It's that I grew up, my first hat was a Miami hat. And he's got the pictures from when he was a kid wearing a Miami shirt. And then he got that offer that, like we talked about earlier, that staff that believed in you and that said, I see the film. You're our guy. Whereas some other schools, including OU, wanted to bring him in. And I think it's Jaden O'Neal, the quarterback from the West Coast. You kind of want to go with the guys that are telling you, no, you, not you and you. So I think that played a huge part as well. But I mean, will it be like me or you being 16 again and Cristobal knocking on our door? You know what I mean? When you grow up a fan of that school and you're playing in the backyard, you know what you're saying. I'm Ken Dorsey with 2 minutes left on the clock. You know what I mean? You're doing all those things. And then they actually say, well, yeah, you can come be Ken Dorsey with 2 minutes on the clock. I think that's all he needed to hear. He locked in. And to the coaching staff's credit, after they brought him in, we've really seen them kind of try to put players around him in this class that not only that he knows, but has played with before. We see Larry Miles got his offer as well, the other receiver from Jones. They're trying to make sure they get pretty tough on. He plays on DEF CON. Shout out to DEF CON 7-on-7. He plays for DEF CON. A lot of those DEF CON young men have offers. A lot of them some of them are already committed here. So I think it's not just the belief, but the double down too. Before he doubled down on the staff doubled down on him. And he's just reciprocating that. And he seems like a kid that is very mature, he understands who he is and he understands the position he's in. And I think that's why he's grateful for what he got, because he does understand that it's easy to say, I'm going to bring in 2. It's easy to say, I'm still going to try to flip Diabell and bring both you guys in, or I'm still going to try to get Keyshawn Henderson and bring you guys in. But I think he respects the fact that the staff said, no, we're shutting down quarterback recruiting too if you'll commit. I think he respects that, and they've honored it. We've seen it. We have not seen them offer another 26 quarterback. So I think from both sides, they both respected that finite When he said he committed, it was a finite decision. When they said he was the guy, it was a finite decision. And I think both respect that enough in each other to where that's all either side needed to hear.
No, I'm glad, and I'm glad because he really wants to be here, and I think that like I said, after Carson Beck, I think it's gonna be the Luke Nichols show, and then once Luke's done, it's gonna be the Darion Coleman show. So that's where I think it's a perfect transition between those two young men. Before I get into Jalen Waters and Cannon Pickett, you want to answer Juan's question? I think Jason earned a 4-star in his 4-star in other sites. I don't think he's a 3-star even on 247. I think he's got his 4-star already. Am I wrong, or are you still seeing 3 somewhere?
So he's a composite 4 on 24/7. I know Rivals, he has the 4, and on 3, I believe he has the 4 as well.
Okay.
A lot of that comes down to size. Sometimes they're not going to give a 6-foot receiver the recognition he should probably deserve, unfortunately, even though he's good enough. When you lead that Chaminade team in the major receiving categories, and you're on a roster that includes Kyle Washington, Jabari Brady, Denarius Gray, Derek Cooper in the backfield, like that is a team full of studs. When you lead that team, again, that's looking special around special players, right? Dual sport athlete, can jump out the gym. We saw him 2-hand dunk poster somebody. Jason is incredible. And I think the reason he's underrated is just size. I think it's sheer size. And it's I call it the CJ Bailey effect. If you're playing on a team that's that great, I think sometimes scouts assume, okay, well, everyone can't be that good. I think that's what happened to JoJo a little bit. I think they never gave JoJo his 5th star because they assumed, okay, well, JJ, Geis in the backfield, Kyle in the slot, CJ at quarterback, elite defense, Zaquan Patterson, okay, everybody can't be this great. I'm not giving 5 to everybody. Somebody is just here. I think that's what they assume sometimes. So I think sometimes it hurts you when you play on a team that great. They assume, okay, well, everybody can't be that like that. I think Lopez has proven, especially at this recent Under Armour camp, I think he proved to the rest of the country that this has nothing to do with who plays with me at Chaminade. Because before that, he was at True North Prep with Zach Katz and went off. So I think he's just a ball player, and he really is a ball player. He is a football player. This kid will block for you. If he finishes the game, no catches, and we win by 10, he's celebrating the same way if he had 10 for 216. He is a football player and an athlete. We see him on the court. He can jump out the gym. Lateral quickness is insane. One of the best route runners in the class. Either him or Larry Miles are just precise route runners. He, to me, and this is not a dig towards X, he is a more athletic Xavier Restrepo.
No, I agree.
Just what God gave him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
What God gave him. He's faster, quicker, twitchier. And he loves X. He said when I asked him about that, he said at first he didn't study X. He knew of X, but he didn't study him like that. And then people kept telling him, You're like X. So he started, let me watch this guy. Let me see what's so similar. And he said, he was like, oh, I see it. I do see it when I watch him. Student of the game. Like I said, man, you do not go to a team like Chaminade and stand out and not, you know what I mean? You're not that guy. It's the same Derek Cooper thing. When Derek Cooper is standing out that much on a team like that, you have to take notice. And I think that's the deal with Jason, where Jason's buzz is here and his ranking is here. The buzz is there for a reason. And you have to look at when the buzz comes. The buzz came during the season and after the season because he had 1,600 yards at Chaminade. And I just listed off all the other receivers. It's 1,600 yards. And then he goes to that UA camp and just destroys every DB they put in front of him. Just absolutely from the slot. And, they say, well, he's a slot guy. Then he goes to the outside and he cooks 5 stars. So I think a lot of his buzz comes from people that have seen him. The low ranking comes from people who look at the measurables, unfortunately. They have to factor that in sometimes when they rank a guy. They're factoring in your size and weight.
but if you go by his True North numbers, he dominated there too. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe he finished with I think it was 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns as a sophomore. So he flat out balled at True North, and he goes to Chaminade, where you would think you have all this talent around him. He's not going to go anywhere, and he leads the team in receptions and yards. So, I mean, the kid's just a good football player and a nice young man, too. Like I've told you before, I know the family personally as well. His grandfather predicted Mark Cristobal was going to take over the team when Manny Diaz, before Manny Diaz was even fired. And I looked at him like, you're insane. We all looked at him like, you're insane. Dude. He's not going to leave Oregon to come here. And lo and behold, I told his grandfather, they should fire everyone on ESPN and hire you. Because
that's crazy.
Because you were right from the very beginning. He called. He's like, Cristobal's gonna be the head coach of the Hurricanes before they fire Manny Diaz. Like, he's not leaving Oregon, all that money, the NIL. No. And he said, I'm telling you, Cristobal will be the next coach of the Miami Hurricanes. And he was right. He was absolutely
crazy. Right. He's also a student of the game too. For any of y'all that are wondering about Jason, student of the game. When you start talking about players, he starts breaking them down, and you're like, oh, you don't just watch other football players, you study them, study how they come in and out of their breaks. He's phenomenal, and a locker room guy too. One of those young men that elevates your locker room too when you put him in it. Big fan of Jason Lopez, as I know Will is too. So that's absolutely why I'm long-winded when somebody asks me about that kid, because he's just a great kid. And aside from all of that, what we're saying off the field, great kid, just a great human being. So big fan of Jason Lopez. Anytime anyone brings up receivers, he's usually like one of the first ones I bring up, just because great kid and great football player. Don't let the 3 stars fool you guys. He's legit.
Hey, listen, man. Sometimes you're a 3-star, but you go into the college and you ball. It happens. X was a 3-star coming out of high school, and now he's basically has a receiving record for the Miami Hurricanes. So go figure. As well, I want to ask you about 2 young men. Before we move on a little bit into the upcoming 2025 season, and we go over your perspective on possibly having joint practices, all right, as well. You, again, Mr. King of the Watch-Alongs, all right, as I call you, you interviewed Jalen Waters, forgive me, Mr. Seatbelt, and you interviewed Cannon Pickett Jr. Jalen just committed to Miami, okay? So I want you to tell the audience a little bit about that young man that we don't know about, like his character as well, or something about his game that we don't talk about, but you've seen because you've studied the film and you've talked to him as well.
So it's hard to talk about his game because nobody threw the ball at him this year. Nobody threw the ball his way at all. And even when he built his huddle, if you watch his huddle from this year, he had to just put highlights of him in coverage because the ball wasn't going that way. So you have to kind of watch his sophomore tape to see why no one threw the ball his way. Long, athletic, quick, smooth, one of the smoothest backpedalers you'll see. His technique is teach tape. There are times when he's covering a receiver and you no longer see the receiver. Like, it's a true blanket. You're watching Jalen and he is running arm for arm, stride for stride, break for break with a receiver. He's that talented. The one thing I don't think people take into account with a young man like that, when I had him on, he was a sophomore at the time. So this is a young man still trying to find himself. So I asked him about leadership. How do you're about to be a junior. How does that work? He is one of those guys that pulls the 8th graders aside. He pulls the 9th graders aside. Hey, if you do this, it works a little bit better. If you, back off, open up your hips this way. The reason you weren't able is because you let him get inside on you, stab. He is a coach to the younger generation already. And this is when he was a sophomore, Will.
Wow.
When he was, I asked him, I said, how's that going to be taking on a leadership role next year? You got a lot of upperclassmen leaving. It's something he had already been doing. He is that kind of guy where the younger guys go to him for advice because he is teach tape. And he has that very humble, not, I'm Jalen. I don't have to deal with, like, I'm being in the league in 3 years. He gives back to 7th graders, 6th graders, 8th graders. That was probably one of the longest answers he gave when I asked him about that, was giving back to the next generation, showing the next generation the little tricks, the little things you can do in recruiting to get noticed, the little things you can do on social media to get seen, how to go to camps, what camps to go to, what camps to avoid when a coach is talking to you, how do you respond, things like that. He was already mentoring other players as a sophomore just because he saw that he was getting these offers and some of his other teammates weren't. So he wanted to reach back and give them the sauce as well. And you see him, he does it on Twitter too. He'll tweet out his other friends and, hey, coaches, come check this guy out. He's a leader, like a born leader. That kind of stuff you don't see on Huddle. That kind of stuff you don't see on Twitter. You don't see on the field. But when you talk to this young man, humble, very mature, you have to get him to talk about himself. And he's called Seatbelt for a reason. But you have to push him to talk about himself. You ask him a goal, he'll start talking about, well, I got my safety is, trying to go D1 next year. So it's like, Jalen, I'm asking you, like, what is your goal? And he'll go to either his team, he'll start talking about a coach, he'll start talking about a player that we need to be in on. He is the quintessential leader. And I know sometimes that's weird to say from a sophomore, but even as a sophomore, he was a leader on and off the field. Plays for Ross 7-on-7, one of the best 7-on-7 teams in the country, just shy of DEF CON, obviously. But was a mentor even as a young guy in his locker room. And I think that's huge because when you take a guy like that and bring him to college, not only will he be up to speed quick, but when he's a sophomore, when he's a junior, he's going to be that guy that when an early freshman comes in, he grabs him, puts him under his wing. When you're doing that as a sophomore in high school, I know you're going to do it as a junior in college. You know what I mean? So he's going to be that guy that when a freshman comes in, he says, hey, stay after and watch film with us. And let me show you why. This is why we do this. We're trying to find a little bit that these receivers do coming in and out of their breaks so we can jump the route, or we're trying to figure out how we can get an edge. He's that kind of guy where he's going to pull the young guys in to get them up to speed. And I think that's the biggest part of his game that doesn't get talked about enough. His football IQ is through the roof, and his leadership skills, to be a sophomore and to have that kind of foresight to know already I need to reach back and help. When we're older, we understand like the significance in that. But when you're younger, you don't. So to see a 15-year-old have that kind of foresight where he's thinking, I'm not just great, but I can help somebody else be great. To me, that's the mark of a true elite human being. And Jalen Waters is an elite human being. And it starts from the top. Father is an elite human being that they hold him accountable. His mom helps him with his recruiting. His father, shout out to Prince, one of the coolest dudes on Twitter you will find, holds his son accountable. He's got a little brother that's 27 corner. So we got another one coming in a few years too. But they come from a family of accountability. And you see that in Jalen. You see that not only does he hold his teammates accountable, but he also wants to bring you there. He wants to, all right, 24/7 is looking at me. How can they look at you? Let's figure out how they can look at you too. And he's got another teammate, DeMonte Timms, kid with no stars, no offers. He's a 3-star kid with over 20 offers now. And a lot of that is he's best friends with Jalen. Jalen won't let his film go unseen. He's that kind of young man.
Yeah. I plan on having DeMonte on soon. I've spoken to him a couple of times on X. Seems like a very nice young man.
Love that kid. So love that. Chico, shout out to Chico, man.
I haven't forgotten him. Just a little. I've been very busy, in general. But
he's actually going to be on campus tomorrow.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
Yeah,
good. I'm glad to see practice. But if you're watching DeMonte, I do have him planning you on real soon. I've not forgotten that deal. So I'm just working things out and have a few things coming up. But soon I will have you on if you'd like to come on, of course. All right, so that's great about Jalen as well. I like hearing that. Again, those are good stories that we don't hear about because we're so focused on just the football that we don't understand these guys are just kids as well. So to see that they have leadership quality and maturity at such a young age is astounding to see. I was going through your interview a bit with Cannon Pickett today, and I found it fascinating because he seems like such a humble and nice and fun young man. Yeah. When you interview him, he loves football and he loves Miami. He just hasn't yet committed yet. And the funny thing about him is that I have no idea. I know I had a good visit at Clemson, but Wolfong jumped the gun a little bit First of all, predicting he's going to go to Clemson. Now he's flipped his Fong bomb, I guess what it's called now, over to Miami. One of the most interesting aspects about Cannon, where the battle was the fact he battled his brother Booker. Okay, tell us a little bit about that. And that's a total personification of iron sharpens iron, because one's a great offensive lineman, one's a great beast of a DN. So tell us a little bit about Cannon.
And he's actually like the first offensive player in his family too. They're all defensive players in his family. So he kind of broke the mold there playing offense. It's funny because if you ask Booker, he'll tell you Cannon never won. And if you ask Cannon, he'll admit that he really couldn't get Booker for a little bit. And then there was a couple practices where he got him. Okay. I even asked him, do you have any answer for his spin move? He was like, no, it's hard to stop. you can't stop it. But I said, do you remember that first day you got him? And he was like, oh, of course I do. It was like after a practice, and he said Booker was a little tired, so there's like some skepticism in there from Cannon if Booker let him win. But that's that competitiveness, right? He finally beats his brother, and he goes, he maybe let me do that. Like that competitiveness in him was like, no, one more. We need to do this again, because I'm not sure if I really dominated you. But everything Will said is true. Just a fun kid. He really is a fun kid. Loves a good laugh. But when that helmet go on, he's a beast, an absolute beast. He's got guard ability, and he plays tackle. He moves like a guard. He's quick, he's fast, he's agile. When he pulls, he's smooth. Gets to the second level with ease, and he is a punisher, a absolute punisher. Plays 5v5 for California Power. Some of those highlights are insane. When you see him go on those 5v5 circuits, and he's playing against these 5-star, 4-star defensive linemen from around the country, and he is stonewalling them, he's special. And when a guy's that big, you would assume, okay, well, little guys with Ben probably give him trouble because he probably can't get down there. Try that if you want to with Cannon. He's got hips. He's got those smooth hips, and he can drop them to get down there with a little guy. And you'll see it on his film. Guys do try to get under him and Ben, and Cannon will just flatten them. The second you turn your back like that to bend, it's over. He's going to flatten you. And what I do love about him is we all see the happy-go-lucky. We see he's a jokester. He's funny. Oh, you watch that interview. We're clowning for half of it. When he starts talking about ball, and he starts talking about football, nothing's funny anymore. It's so serious. He loves the game, like really, really does love the game and studies the game inside and out, studies the defensive side, studies the offensive side, can play all 5 up front. To me, he's the quintessential offensive lineman Mirabal would love, because you probably play him inside early, and he has the skills to play inside. And then if you need him to, he kicks outside. I think he projects as a guard inside. But then again, with someone with those feet, with his feet and his hands, I could understand why you may want to keep him at tackle. I think his biggest attribute to me is his mind, is his football IQ. When you listen to how he deals with pass rushers or how he deals with the game, he sounds like a kid that doesn't watch or do anything but study football. And I know he does do other stuff, but he is a true student of the game, like a true guy that studies. Even Booker Pickett's spin move, he studied that to try to beat it. He tried. He had a method. It just didn't work. he had a method. And that's the side of Cannon that I feel like no one sees or talks about. First, we talk about him being a Pickett, and every single one of them is athletic. And then he's a massive kid. So then you talk about his size and his strength, but his football IQ is through the roof, dude. And to me, that's why Clemson, Bama, LSU, Oregon, that's why they're all on him. It's not just the pedigree, the size, and the speed. This kid is a savant when it comes to watching, breaking down film, understanding what a defensive lineman wants to do to him, understanding what kind of moves you even have in your arsenal. So if I know you don't even have a spin move, when you go inside, I can go inside with you because I'm not worried about you jab stepping me and then spinning out because I've watched you enough. And I know you don't have a spin move. You got a bull rush and you got that quick 1-2, but he knows that already. He knows these different things about the guys he's facing. Another guy that has moved around. He's played at a couple different schools. I believe last year he played with Dallas Wilson on that team with Dallas Wilson out there at Tampa Tech, the Titans out there, playing top flight competition out there, playing against some of the best defensive linemen in Florida. And with his California Power team, they travel. They play the best 5-on-5 teams in the country, and he dominates. So again, when you stand out amongst standouts, that makes you special. And the way he approaches the game, the way he approaches preparing for a game, it's pro. He prepares like a professional already. And I had him on after his sophomore year. So if he was preparing like that as a sophomore, when he gets to college, again, he's going to be another one of those guys where, hey, let's go watch some more film. Hey, fresh, come in here with me, freshman. Let me show you why we watch this, how we break this down, why we break this down. He's a true student of the game. And I know that's why Mirabal loves him, because he is a true student of the game. And he's a very good kid. He's very happy-go-lucky. He enjoys football. He enjoys life. He jokes with you. He'll laugh with you. I even said it. I said, dude, when you put that helmet on, you are a completely different person, dude. Because you talk to him and he's fun. He's funny. You joke with him. That helmet go on. He's got the picture last year. Somebody, if you're in the chat, when this is over, go to his Instagram. On one of his warm-ups last year, he's in the end zone with a Jason mask.
Yeah, I saw that.
Just standing, not warming up, not stretching, not nothing. He's just standing there. That's the difference in Cannon. Cannon can go from, let's take it back to basketball. He can go from Nick Young. He can go from being goofy like Swaggy P to Mamba mentality when it's time. And I think that's what makes kids like that special, when they can have that duality, when they can still be a kid while they're a kid, but when the helmet comes on, it's serious. I think that is either that and his versatility are just, that makes him special to me, because like I said, he's 2 roster spots. You don't have to carry a swing tackle and a guard. He's your swing tackle and your guard. And he plays against top flight competition. He comes from an elite athletic pedigree. We know that. And some of those battles at Walton with Booker Pickett Jr., I asked both of them. They both said the same thing, though. They were epic. Like, they were epic. Because you know how that is. You don't want your younger brother to beat you.
Yeah,
and as a younger brother, you're just waiting to beat your older brother. You just can't wait to get him. So he was literally forged through fire. And like I said, he comes from a pedigree where I make the joke on Twitter like every 10 days where I'll take any picket. I'll take their aunt if she has eligibility. I'll take anybody in that family. If they have eligibility, give them to me. And he's the first offensive player in his immediate family too. Obviously, the cousin is at LSU. We all know. DJ. So he comes from a great pedigree as well. There is that issue with the SEC has been on him very heavy. Alabama's been on him. Clemson obviously has been on him. Oregon's been on him. One of his really close friends, Zaire Addison, is a true freshman at Oregon right now. So I think Oregon will always maybe make that top or around those top schools or keep his interest. For one, it's a great program. And for two, he's got a buddy up there as well that I know they're really close. They're like brothers. But we have his actual brother. So I'm hoping that helps us. But Cannon's going to have his own journey, obviously, and his own decision to make. So when the Clemson thing happened, it all hurt us simultaneously because, you know, we've all been watching Cannon since we started recruiting Booker. So we've all been watching Cannon since he was a freshman. So you kind of just start to feel like he's already family at this point. So I'm hoping that's when we close in on. He's my offensive lineman number 1. And I know Cantwell is can't miss, elite, league ready in 2 years. But that kid Cannon Pickett is special. He really is.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic to hear. I'm excited. I hope he does commit to Miami. as well. I think that he's a fan, so I do think that kind of puts Miami in a very, very good spot as well, having his brother here, and he's also be a Kane legacy as well. So that puts him in a very good spot. So we'll see what happens. But I do think he's Miami's player to lose personally. So like, just from the very beginning, from your introduction to him, to the podcasting world, and also from what I heard about him as well, he looks like he wants to be a Kane. I wanted to go over the 2025 season with you, but I know you're in a bit of a hurry, because you have some matters to take care of at home. But I do.
Let's run this back next Tuesday. Then we're back here next Tuesday.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. Absolutely, man.
John more time. She won't be sick as hell next Tuesday.
Okay, perfect. Run it back as well, and we're
this way we can go over spring a little bit more too.
Absolutely. Oh yes, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, before we continue on with my next question and so on, I will be doing, and I've announced it several times, I will be doing for the week of the spring game. I will be going live every single day. So of course, you have an open invitation to come on. Yes,
Let's
sir.
Go.
Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir. Definitely trying to grow the show, man. And I want to be annoying on everybody's YouTube channel.
Sometimes
will again. Yes, will again.
Yes,
will again, man. So yeah, I'll be reaching out to Benny and of course Polk and Joey as well to see if they want to come on a certain day. Before we go, I want to ask one question. This is from 904 Kane, but I also want to give a bit of a shout out, of course, to my new friend, my new boy, Tyreek Gracia. He is the host of TY24 Sports. Okay, so subscribe to his channel. Great guy. Met him today. He recognized me from the show, and he was a substitute at the school where I work at. It was just hilarious.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, he is. He also played nickel. He also played nickel at Ole Miss back in the early 2010s. So he's also a very good football player and skilled as well. So big shout out to Tyreek. But he wanted me to ask you this to bring this up, but I thought it was a great idea. And also 904 Hurricane can't ignore his question either. The talks about Fran Brown asking Dion to do basically co-spring games in general. What are your thoughts on that? I have a feeling I know what Mario would say, just from the optics, but what are your thoughts on that, about that being a possibility? They do it in the pros all the time during preseason. So what do you think?
Well, first off, Mario ain't doing that.
Yes.
That is not happening.
I know. I said the same thing. I told Tyreek the same thing. I'm like, well, with Coach Cristobal, I don't think so. He's too controlling.
Yeah, you especially with the media, especially what they see.
Yeah.
Y'all saw Will's eyes.
Yeah.
Cristobal don't put it like this. Somebody leaked something. Was it last year? It was the TVD year. Somebody leaked something, and then scrimmages got no media. It's like nobody can come now. So I don't think so. And he still runs his spring old school. So those scrimmages that they do are legit. The ones we don't get to see. So
quickly before you continue on, he does, and this is because Dono, covers it all the time. Our friend Alex Dono, he says the media's only allowed 30 minutes to watch practice, and then bye.
And they gotta go.
Just 30 minutes. So they get basically just some tosses and quarterback play, but the actual what they run plays and stuff like that, they don't see any of that at all.
They don't see any of it. Yeah, and he locks them out the scrimmages. He doesn't let them come to the scrimmages.
Yeah,
which is good because you want people to just play. You want them to just play. I like the idea. Here's why I like the idea. Spring games feel like they're gonna die, and I don't want them to die. I love spring games. And that's our chance. As someone who covers recruiting and knows a lot of the young guys, I'm never going to see them play. I want to see them play. And a lot of times in the spring, you get to see what's next. We're so excited to see Luke Nickel, not because Luke's going to play this year, but because he's next. Mm-hmm. We're all excited to see Gerard Pringle, not because he needs to contribute this year. It's because he's next. Last spring, we couldn't wait to see Josiah Trader. Not because we thought he was going to catch 80 balls, but we knew he was going to have to factor into the program down the road. So I like that. I like seeing the young guys get reps. I like seeing what they can do with some live bullets. It's not full live bullets because it's still a scrimmage. But I like the idea of the joint practices for two reasons. One, selfishly, I just don't want spring games to end. Mm-hmm. And two, you may get a better gauge. Sometimes you need to see what a guy does with some lights on him before the lights are super bright. So let's see what you do in this spring and this, in this scrimmage against another team. And then I can see if you're just a practice guy or when there's a little bit of pressure. Because if you can't perform when Syracuse is here for that spring game, I can't take you in the Big 12 country at Baylor when they're screaming. You're going to fold. Mm-hmm. So I kind of need to see that now. Also, as a coach, you get a bit more gauge for some of your guys that are improving or not improving. I get to see you against someone who doesn't know all your moves. Spoiler alert, at some point in practice, I know what y'all are running. I I used to tell DBs this all the time. At some point, I know the coverage because y'all only play 3 or 4 different coverages. I know what y'all are doing. So yeah, this post may tell me 7 and go in. But I also know in this coverage and robber, y'all safety comes down inside the box. So I'm gonna cut this thing at 5 and catch it before he can get to me. Is that how the play's supposed to be ran? No, but I practice against this defense every day. So I know the tricks and trades and how to get out of it, how to get around it. You know the receiver who doesn't want to be jammed. He can't get off the jam. So maybe this coverage doesn't even call for jamming, but I don't want him to beat me. So I'm gonna put hands on him because I know. Or I've seen them run this play all spring. When they motion Ray out, they want to throw him the wheel route. So sometimes you're beating your fellow teammates or getting beat by your fellow teammates, and it's not really off skill or instinct. It's because I've seen y'all's playbook all spring. I know what's coming. For example, you're an offensive lineman. I'm a defensive lineman.
Mhm.
If I know you don't have good hands, right? Why would I bull rush you and get into you? I know Will don't have good hands. I practice against him every day. I'm going to stay on the outside. I'm going to hand fight with him because I know he can't mess with me out here on that. I start to learn your tendencies.
Mhm.
So our coach used to always say that he didn't like us to scrimmage each other too much in high school. Sometimes he'd like to bring the JV first team over to the varsity field, have us scrimmage them because they're hungry and they want it for one. And for two, they're not going against you every day. They know my tendencies. They know, all right, if Corey's in the slot, he likes to cheat inside a little bit if he's going to run this post corner. I know this because I've seen him run this post corner all spring. So when I cheat inside, you know what the safeties are saying? Carmona's running a post corner. Syracuse won't know that. They just got to line up and play. So you maybe get a better accurate gauge on who's progressing, who's doing what's working. Does this new wrinkle I put in work? It may not work at practice because we watched you install it. I saw you install this. So every time you motion Ray, I'm looking back at Poiser and going, back up. They're going deep. I may not know that against Syracuse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know their playbook. But at some point, and we know how spring playbooks are too. They're vanilla a little bit.
Mhm.
So at some point, it's just tendencies. Oh, every time they motion lofting out like that, they run this counter. I know this because I practice with them. So I see this every day. So come the spring game, I can cheat a little bit. I can cheat. Oh, Corey's inside. All right. I'm going to bait this post corner because I know he wants to run it. So because I know he wants to run it, let me make the quarterback think he's open for a second and break at the last second. Now I got to pick. Now it looks like we played perfect defense. We didn't play perfect defense. That safety is my best friend. He knows me. You know what I mean? At some point, JoJo can't throw too many things at Chris Ewald. They went to high school together.
Yeah.
I've seen everything you got. Now, you may have 1 or 2 new moves, but after practicing with you again in the spring, all spring, I know everything you got. And now I know how to beat you because you probably got me once or twice. And then those of us, I don't care if you play basketball, hockey, football, tennis, swimming. What does your coach make you do when you mess up a rep? Do it again. Mess it up again. Do it again. So at some point, I'm like, oh, this is that one play that we had to run 5 times. Okay, if JoJo motions in, they're gonna run that quick whip. They do it to us. Remember that one day they had to run this 4 times. So you just know what's coming because you practice against it constantly. So it's hard to get a real gauge for how does this work? Do the new DBs, are they working? Or does JoJo at this point know the weaknesses in our own DBs because he sees them every day so he can cook them? You know what I mean? Does a defensive lineman know, hey, they don't like it if we crash down inside? Syracuse don't know that, but we know that because we practice against each other. So maybe there's that one day where you get to. Now I know they said they want to do a couple joint practices too, which is great because you also need to just hit somebody else every once in a while. I mean, for Christ's sake, you're not going to hurt your own teammates. So you're not going to hit them too hard in the spring anyway. So, and it's competition. So I like it for those two reasons. I like it for not getting rid of spring games. This is from a selfish fan perspective. I think the spring games are a fun fan experience. And because it's a better gauge of what's working and what's not working. It's hard to figure out what's working and what's not working when you're going against us. We didn't know that our secondary looked that bad this last year because it's easy for them to cheat in the spring. Oh, they're going deep. Let's back up a little bit. How do we know they're going deep? I saw them run this for 4 straight months. I know what they're doing here. So at some point, you're cheating. You're sliding inside because you know the slant's coming, or you're playing outside leverage because you know the speed out's coming, or I'm backing off playing off man. Even though the defense calls for press man, I'm backing off because I've seen this and I know they're going deep. So sometimes you don't get a real good gauge. You know, let's say this year we have a bit of a different offense. We don't have Carson Beck is mobile, but he's not Cam Ward.
Yeah.
So the offense is going to be a little bit different. How do we know if any of those new things work? You're not going to know against us because they know what to look for. And then the guys that have been in the scheme for a couple years, you're not going to throw much at West that he has not seen in the past 2 springs from this offense. He didn't see it all. So at some point, it's cool just to thump against another team to, all right, let me see if this new wrinkle works. Does the safety really bite on this play action? Our safeties don't anymore because they know it's play action. But does their safety bite on it? Or no, this didn't work on us. It doesn't work against them. You probably get a better gauge for what's really going to work, especially when you're installing wrinkles. Now, your base stuff is going to be your base stuff. You know it works because you run it every year. But there's wrinkles installed on defenses and offenses every season. Even the new DC. Okay, so he's installing his own defense, right? After a couple weeks, the offense is going to be used to it. They're going to go, okay, well, the only difference is the jack stands up. Okay, so when they stand him up, X, Y, and Z. All right, when they do that, they're bringing him down. You start to key in on these things. We all know you key in on them during the game when you're watching it. So imagine if you're practicing against the same playbook every day. Inside run, individual scrimmage. Inside run, individual scrimmage. At some point, I'm figuring out what you're doing or you're trying to do to me. So it's a bit of a cheat code on both sides. So to have a fresh team in there, a fresh perspective, you get some live bullets. If we would have seen our DBs against a different offense last year, maybe in the spring, we would have went, oh, this may be a problem. This may be a problem a bit. But they didn't really get bombed on in the spring game. Why? Because they probably understood, oh, Cam likes throwing the ball deep. Let's make sure we back up.
Mm-hmm.
So they know what to look for. You start to know Dalen Upshaw's in. That's the speed guy. Syracuse might know that. Miami definitely knows that. You know what I mean? They definitely know. Circa a couple years ago, who's Tyler Harrell? When they brought Tyler Harrell in, everybody in that Miami secondary in the spring went back up because we know what they're doing with him. Syracuse don't know that. So sometimes it's just good to have another defense to try some stuff against, see what really works. I like it. It could cause some friction, obviously, and you don't want to get guys hurt. So that's going to be the big thing, is making sure guys don't get hurt in these situations like this. Because obviously, Ruben Bain doesn't want to hurt CC. You know what I mean? When we're going up against each other, but Ruben Bain don't care about your left tackle. He didn't really care if he makes the season or not. He cares if CC makes the season. So obviously you want to make sure guys are healthy, but it is a proven concept in the NFL. They do it in the NFL. And for those of us that know, those practices get very heated when those teams go against each other, very heated. So we'll have to figure out how to manage that a little bit, because it's probably going to be worse because these are college kids trying to prove themselves. But I like it, Will. I think it could be a really fun idea, as long as, like I said, no one takes it overboard and no one's going out there trying to hurt somebody. You know what I mean? I feel like it'd be a great gauge for both teams to see what works and what doesn't work.
I think if you do it like the way Colorado and Syracuse talk about doing it, where you have non-conference teams that don't really face each other go at it, that's the best way to go, because that way, and the guy who brought it up actually made sense. It's a guy from Locked On Syracuse. He's the one that said that Colorado and Syracuse don't really play each other So it's a good way to kind of get a gauge, and you're not going to see these guys in the regular season. So let's say if Miami was to go against Iowa, and when do we play Iowa? Never.
Yeah.
So it'll be kind of a way to see it. I mean, you could do like they do in the NFL. They do one series and they sit down, and then you give your freshmen, your unproven guys, your walk-ons an opportunity to get some reps. I think it's a good idea. I hope, and you're not selfish for not wanting spring games to die. I think it's good for the fan base who pays good money and tickets and season tickets and merchandising and gives ratings to college football to get something to at least be excited about when the regular season starts, which has always been the spring game. I think it's good to keep that going. I don't think it's, I mean, again, whatever, but I don't think it's right, that college football or university decide, no, we're not doing this. I get it for injuries, but the bottom line is, though, at the end of the day, you're paying money because you want to see these young men go at it. So if that's the option to keep the spring game going, where you just have basically a joint practice or a joint, spring game scrimmage and so on, I think that's a great idea. Make it non-conference and make it teams that generally don't face each other in the Power Four, and I think that works best. And you're absolutely right. After a while, if Jojo likes to cheat to the inside before he goes outside, the DB is going to figure that out, especially if it's Chris Ewald, who played with this guy for years. So I totally agree with you. But if it's a different guy, in general, like a Ryan Wingo, who we just talked about earlier, versus Chris Ewald, and you might get a different scenario out of it. So I agree with you.
JoJo doesn't know if that works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He doesn't know if that works because they know it. So he doesn't even know if his releases really work because they see his releases so much. So I'm not biting on that hesitation. I know you do it. Whereas, for example, this Iowa corner has to face up JoJo and has no idea what's coming. And that's more indicative of what you're going to see. Now, obviously, you're going to practice a couple practices together, so you'll have an idea. The same way you'll scout a team during the season, but you get to try that stuff against other people. And then sometimes, who's to say we play Iowa in this spring game, and Dalen Upshaw goes crazy, and that staff goes, "Oh." If you put competition in front of some of these kids, they're different. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you don't see that when you're competing against yourself. Sometimes guys are not great practice players, but if you put competition in front of them, they're elite. We've all known players. It goes all the way back to school. We've known people that are terrible at classwork and homework. It's test time. They lock in.
Yep.
Some people need that pressure. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another good way to look at it is let's put some pressure in front of these guys and see who cracks and who rises to the occasion.
I totally agree with you. And Corey, Chalupa, thank you so much for coming on. I know the wifey's sick and you gotta go do the husbandly duties. But I appreciate you coming on. Again, man, you and I, brother, an hour and a half as usual.
Oh, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Definitely.
We had this conversation earlier. He was like, "No, we'll keep it short." I didn't even respond to that. I was like, "Well, me and you can't.
No, we
not
can't.
Happening. I like talking to you. It's not gonna be short. It's not gonna be short." That's why I was like, "Yeah, let's do this next week."
And to let everybody know, we are good friends off camera. So as well, we do check up on each other. I help promote his show. He helps me too, so we're good friends off camera. It's not just he's on. We are good friends. We help each other out as well. So. Yeah, man. So it works very well for us as well. And I thank you again for saying you'll come on next week as well. I also thank you for coming on the basically spring week is what I'm going to call it.
Let's do that. That's going to be fun,
so
man.
It's going to be a lot of fun, man. But next week, we'll definitely talk about the 2025 season outlook as well. Thank you for coming on. And just let everybody know, we apologize, but we spent 30 minutes talking about basketball. I get it, because,
sorry. That was my fault. But see, that goes back to he's my actual friend. So that wasn't a podcast question. That was, man, I've been watching a lot of basketball lately. I know Will loves his Heat. Let me ask him about his Heat. I'm sorry. That usually happens before we record, but I jumped on like right before. So I do apologize, chat. That's my fault. That's just me talking to my friend. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And the funny thing is, I'm a structured person. I can't believe I forgot to send you the link.
That also never happens. He usually sends it the day before.
Yes.
Will's like a day before like link kind of guy, whereas I'm usually like 5 minutes before the show. There you go. He's usually day before, but so chat, do not give him any stick for that first 20 minutes. That was my fault. That was just me asking my buddy about the Heat. It had nothing to do. That wasn't even for content. I was just curious what my friend thought. I literally was. I started watching a lot of basketball, so I was like, let me ask Will about this.
Yeah, man, of course, man. But thank you again for coming on, man. And my boy, go like his podcast, subscribe. Will Q, I Hate Football podcast. I was on last week as well. So yeah, man. So yeah, definitely, man. We'll talk about getting together this week as well, or sometime next week as well, whatever it is. Well, but I love coming on your show as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. If you like this channel, please forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to Uheard. All right, for Corey Carmona for Uheard, and don't forget to subscribe to. You changed your name a little bit of your show. It's Chalupa Recruiting, right? Something like that.
CB_recruiting. I do apologize for everybody. We're trying to figure out the branding over here. YouTube's algorithm is just tearing me up. So I'm trying to find a good algorithm. It'll change one more time. We're going through a rebranding process.
Okay.
I was told by somebody I need to rebrand it to be seen a bit more. So we're going through a rebranding process. But for now, CB_recruiting, or if you just search Chalupa Batman, it's going to be a good experience for you because it'll either be my stuff or some hilarious videos. So either way, you're going to have some fun on YouTube if you search Chalupa Batman.
Perfect, brother. All right, man. God bless, man. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Take care of the wifey.
Thank you,
I'll see you next week, man. All right. Peace. Okay. Bye-bye, guys.